So now that we have a historical foundation for monasticism, the ascetic life, how is one called into this? How do they know that they've been called to be a monk as opposed to a priest or join the diaconate? Go into that for yourself. How did you specifically discern that role?
Specifically, the monastery. I mentioned my desire to be in a familial setting and have be a part of a community in order to live my faith. That's what did it for me. Although before I made the decision, I thought about the priesthood, and it's beautiful. You get to accompany people in their periods of great joy. Say, hey, they had a baby, you get to help. You get to be at the baptism, watch them grow up and stuff. And also accompany people in their lowest moments in the hospital or after a crisis. I haven't been the person to assist a family in a time of crisis yet, but my own family has gone through them. And of course, they look to me for support. And I have to be able to bring to them whatever I have to offer. Whatever my faith is, I have to be able to translate it to them. And so, like, the most recent family crisis was my grandfather died. And of course, thank you, the community, my family was looking to me for support. And that was definitely the most priestly I've had to be. So I had to read the prayers in order to comfort them. And I was sitting at the bedside with my grandfather as he was slowly passing. And so I got a hint of what the priest has to do when they're not in church leading people in worship. And it's heavy.
Yeah.
It's a lot. And I've seen the youngsters come here and they get baptized here, and I see them grow up, and it's like, my goodness, look at you. You're already running around in the back of the church. And I remember when your mom hadn't even met your father yet.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
so
cool.
that has been wild to see. Like, and now my nephew's 18.
I bet. Ooh.
Yeah, so he's seen me grow up in the monastery too. And I have a niece who was born just a few weeks before I joined the monastery.
Oh, wow. She's like 10 now, close to it.
All she knows about me is Apollo the monk. And whenever I come visit, she's just like, Apollo, let's play. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I'm only here for a little bit of time, so I want to talk to my siblings too. But all right, let's go play. And that's always fun. That's always a blast.
That's cool.
It keeps you young, you know. And it's always a treat whenever I go to see them. And it is another reminder of I need to be pastoral to them as well as be just a member of the family, because now I'm a monk. I also have to represent the church to them. I have to also represent Christ to them. And it's not always easy. And, I go through my ups and downs just like everybody else does. And whenever there's a crisis in the family, you got to just muster everything together that you have, all the scripture that's in your heart, all the love for the brothers that you have in your heart, and go and try to be there for the family. And it's real. It is living life with other people is eye-opening. And I have to do my responsibilities in order to be Christ for them whenever I help.
So serving in this pastoral role, and you see the needs of your own family, the things they struggle with, whether it be from death to things they're struggling about in their personal life, that transitions over to monastic life and your role as a prior. When you look at the struggles of your brothers and sisters, how did they choose monastic life? How did they say, I want to be a monk, I don't want to be a priest, I don't want to be a deacon, but I feel like this is what God has called me to?
Yes. We've all had our different motivations. We're not all clones of each other here in the monastery, although Christ is the ideal of the monk. So that is the mold that we're all trying to fit.
Okay.
That's the goal that we're all aiming towards. but we all come from different backgrounds. We've all had different upbringings, different familial situations. You know, I come from a broken household. My parents got divorced. Very relatable for a lot of people these days. And some of the monks also had a similar upbringing as well. And yet, the thing that bound us all together is our desire to pray more, to be a part of a community, to have a simple way of life in which we can work with dignity, pray together as a family, worship in the church at the table of the altar, and at the same time come together as a family in the dining room. So from table to table.
Yeah, breaking bread from each place.
And our entrance stories are all different. Like Abbot Isaac, he tells his story, and his monastic life started by accompanying a friend of his to the monastery. His friend didn't stay, but he did.
Wow.
Yeah. Father David, for example, he is he's so old now, the poor guy. But when I first met him, the stories that he tells about, I just wanted to live a simple life where I can go to mass every single day. That was it. That was his motivation.
It's beautiful.
It is beautiful. And it seems so simple, but when you think about it, it's innocent as well. And it's a beautiful motivation to draw you to this way of life and to keep you going as well. Brother Timothy, he's our resident handyman, but as he puts it, I pray with my hands. So he's better in a service position. He loves to make people happy, and he'll fix things, and he'll take care of things. And at the end of the day, if all of us are good, then he's good too. Father Lucius, he didn't even know what monks were before he came to the university. As he was a student at the university, he encountered the monks, and that's what drew him in, was a regular prayer that the monks did.
Wow.
And for me, it was the communal aspect. And for all of us with our different motivations and backgrounds, we all stuck together.
That's cool.
And we have a long entrance process. Sure, you have the year of novitiate, but then you make your simple vows, which are temporary, and you renew them every year. And with that, you can go 3 years up to 9 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's a long entrance process.
That's crazy.
But it's to give you plenty of time to think and discern and to pray and wonder, is this really what I want to get myself into? For all of us that are here, our answer was yes, despite all the other things. But not only I'm doing this because I don't want to do something else. It's like I want to do this because I want to do this. And I want to pray, and I want to be here. I want to be exposed to the scriptures. I want to work with my brothers, and I want to serve the Lord in that capacity.
Yeah, you're not avoiding something by being here.
Correct. Oh yeah, we always tell the new guys that, hey, you're running away from something, guess what? It follows you in the monastery. Yeah.
That's scary.
Everything that makes you who you are follows you into the monastery. Everything that makes you who you are follows you wherever you go. Follows you into marriage, follows you into parenthood. So this way of life is really no different to that. We make our vows in front of God and everybody, but when you get married, you make your vows to your spouse and to God and everybody as well. So it's a major commitment. I vow to make a life with you. In my case, I vow to make a life with this community. And so in that respect, we like to joke around and say, oh, hey, you only married one person. I married all these guys here. So yeah, it can be tough. It can be fun. It can be very rewarding. There's a saying that we have, it's a beautiful life if we let it be. But if we're always being critical and nitpicking every little thing, then you're going to be miserable. And if you're miserable, everybody's going to be miserable.
It'll trickle down somewhere or another.
Sure does, yeah.
But that leads us to the question I think everyone is asking about being a monk. What do I have to give away? But on top of that, you may not have the Xbox anymore, or the fancy car, whatever it may be. So get into that a little bit about what you realistically gave away for the Lord. But what do you gain as a monk? What does putting away the allures of the world, truly taking on your identity as a pilgrim on this earth, what do you gain from that? Your spirit and your health, whatever it may be. Tell us a little bit.
Just like a pilgrim on the road, you can't bring everything with you. You can only bring what you can carry on your back. And for us in the monastery, that's a serious question. What are you willing to part from in exchange for the promises of the life that we live here? So we have the commitment of being together in the community, and for the inner transformation that will take place, you can't bring everything with you. You have to let something go. Recently, I was at the farmer's market, and we were talking about the sacrifices that we make. And I erroneously said, we can't get married. But then later I was thinking about that. I was like, why did I say that? It's not that we can't get married, it's that we don't get married. We're choosing just something else.
Intentional.
Exactly. Like Martha and Mary. Choose the better doesn't necessarily mean the other one is bad. So for us in the monastery, we don't get married because we commit ourselves to the community. We're not supposed to gossip because that destroys community. We're not supposed to grumble and complain about our situation, our way of life, woe is me, because that also destroys community. Grumbling about your situation, or about your superiors, for example, that really pulls the foundation out from the whole community, and it just sprinkles weeds everywhere, and it's noxious. You don't want to live in a community that's like that, but at the same time, you don't want to be the one that starts it or even allow it to continue, because then you're living in that community too. You don't want a house full of nasty monks that are full of resentment or negative things. You want them to be not happy or comfortable or content. You want them to be joyful about the way of life that we live here. Christ is our joy. So if we're out of touch, of course we're going to be miserable, because who really wants to live this way of life without Christ?
Yeah, without Christ, not a soul.
This would be madness. We would just be a bunch of dudes running around in funny looking outfits if we were disconnected from that call to follow Christ.
Or the root.
And without it, we would just be a bunch of weirdos. But no, we're attempting to follow the higher calling, to be kind and Christ-like to our brothers, to ingest the scriptures and ruminate on them and think on them, and allow that to change our life, to change our way of thinking, to change our way of interacting with our brothers, and to move forward in the faith, to grow up. Even in the rule, it talks about once the youth reach a certain age, then give them more freedom, but still everybody in the community is supposed to keep track and keep them in check to make sure that they don't make mistakes that are going to affect the whole community or that they're going to regret for the future. So there's a lot of accountability involved within the community, but this should be the case in the wider church. But if it's coming from a place of Christ, that's where it should be coming from, not from I just don't like the way so-and-so sins because it's different than the way I sin. And that destroys community altogether.